Hi everyone, thank you for joining today's webinar. My name is Sonia Siddiqui, and joining us again is Michelle from Robert Half. Hi Michelle.
Hey Sonia, and hello everybody.
Thank you for joining us again, Michelle's been bringing us great webinars with great insight, and we're really excited about this new webinar that she's bringing to us today. But before we get into it, I just want to make sure that everyone understands that you are all on listen only mode, so we will not be able to hear you, but we will be taking your questions towards the end of the presentation. So for that, please type your questions into the Q&A tab. And for best results, please use a laptop or a desktop computer using Google Chrome. And if you are using mobile devices such as your cell phones or tablets, please download the Zoom app for best results. And just to tell you a little bit about ACCESS Employment, we've been around for over 30 years helping job seekers such as yourselves. Just in the past year alone, we served over 34,000 job seekers, and we work with over 2,200 employee connections, and we work with various sponsors, community partners, and different professional associations as well. We have over 30 tailored programs, including our sector-specific bridging programs, programs for youth, for women, and go to our website to find out more. We've got 7 locations in the GTA, with our 8th location that's online and fully servicing everyone right now because of the current situation. Our locations are physically closed, but we are working 9 to 5 every day online, and we're serving all our clients through email, phone, or Zoom. And online services is bringing you lots of webinars this month too, so check that out on our website to see what's coming up next. And now I'm going to hand it over to Michelle.
Awesome. Welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. And welcome back to people that joined us last month or in my past webinars. So my name is Michelle Hanikanen. I'm a resource manager at Robert Half. I'm specifically in the financial services vendor management world, which is temporary placements. But definitely we have a number of other lines of business as well that can help in terms of hiring and job opportunities, both temporary and permanent. So today we're going to talk about digital etiquette 2.0. It's important, and given how we're living right now, during COVID and likely beyond COVID, it's going to become increasingly more important. I think we're going to see more remote working, definitely for quite a bit. So this will hopefully help you in terms of preparing email, text, and posts for social media and sort of some tips around it. And then you can skip to the next one. Awesome. So here we've got a little video. So you never know sort of when social media is going to impact and maybe run you into some problems. So potentially if a company wins a certain client pitch and an employee all of a sudden Instagrams a photo of a celebration party with that client's logo somewhere in the background, all of a sudden 3 hours later, that person might be an ex-employee. Or if you're on an airplane, and maybe you've sent a message out, which you thought went to one person, maybe got broadcast to many, many other people. And all of a sudden you get off the plane and there's been lots of conversation for those 11 hours and all of a sudden you may not be working there. So definitely your social presence is important and what you say and do. So have you ever received an email that was intended for someone else or maybe sent the email to the wrong person? I know on occasion it might happen. It's happened to me for sure. So digital faux pas are common, and thankfully most of our mistakes may not make headlines of any sorts, or at least we hope not. So definitely you want to be careful when sending stuff. And pay attention to digital etiquette ever since the workplaces have adopted electronic email, which happened in the late 80s and early 90s. The pace of evolution has picked up. I know when I started working, we had no email. You actually physically picked up the phone or you went to someone's desk to speak to them with regards to an issue or get clarification on something or to just conduct business. But now the world has changed. So we definitely need to refresh to the modern rules of digital etiquette. So courtesy counts. A Robert Half survey that we did recently asked managers how being courteous to coworkers impacts a person's career prospect. And as you can see, 65% said it can greatly accelerate advancement. And then 33% somewhat skills play a bigger role. But definitely, and some people think it's no impact at all, but definitely it is important in communication. With digital etiquette, the rules are, somewhat in flux. Practices vary from workplace to workplace. Some places are very formal. Other organizations are very casual and conversational styles. Some offices require email signatures. Others don't use them and discourage them. Some CEOs want you to text and email them. Others, prefer the style of don't ping them unless they ping you. So regardless of the format and personalities, there are 3 pillars to digital etiquette. So don't annoy. No soliciting. If you sell jewelry, cookies, or anything else on the side, do not use your work resources as a marketing tool. Same with raising money for your favorite cause. Beware of autocorrect. Certain platforms are more aggressive than others. Some platforms will change people's names if they don't think the spelling is standard. So for example, Kimberly, Kimberly, it might be changed to the more typical Kimberly. So, you have to physically go and check it. So make sure that you check that you're spelling names correctly throughout it. And don't write anything you wouldn't want the whole world to know. Disgruntled associates leak emails, hackers can break into servers, steal data, colleagues may screenshot your posts, tweets, photos, and send them to HR or just share them with the world. So you want to make sure that you're avoiding sending, inflammatory emails online. You don't want to be, writing about work grievances, complaining about clients, gossip with coworkers. You have freedom of speech, but not freedom from the consequences of your speech. So something to really keep in mind, especially if you're on the job search or you're working. So, I know instant messenger is definitely taking and gaining ground in the workplace, but still email is the strong use of communication. So the average worker sends 40 emails and receives 90 each day. So that's 130 emails to deal with. I know sometimes I get way more than that, depending on the day, depending on the activity to some of my postings, but it does take time to go through. Emails are the most formal type of business communication these days, so we want to treat it as that. Firstly, you'll need a subject line when sending an email. This is not the place you want to write your entire message. So you can see here on the screen, I need your proposal by next Friday or else we might lose the Smith account. Let me know, thanks. Also, you may want to avoid using urgent or read this now. Remembering that pillar about not annoying. Only the first 50 or so characters will even show up in the preview mode. So aim to fit within it. But once the reader opens the email, sometimes when you write urgent, it's not urgent at all. If it's truly urgent, email might not be the best medium to use. Maybe you put a phone call first and then subsequently send an email to follow up. So optimizing for readability. I really like this proposal. Here are some quick tips for feedback. So this is the body of the email. So everything should be clear and concise and organized. Use a font between 12 and 14 points and a serious type face to make it easier for the reader to read and see your points. I also like using maybe some subheaders, bullets, numbered lists, indents to organize content. I find that's really easy and a good snapshot of what you're sharing. But don't go overboard, write more than one screen of text. You might lose the person that's getting the email. And don't overuse bold or all caps because this can come across as angry in an email or text. So when sending your email, don't over apologize or apologize unnecessarily. And don't put yourself down in statements like some of the ones here. I know this isn't the greatest proposal. I'm sure I missed the mark on this one, and sorry, but I didn't quite understand your last point. Do take responsibility and apologize when you're clearly wrong, but don't be presumptive of apologies to influence the recipient's perception of you and your work. It may undermine your credibility and make you come across as ineffective. If you're sending something, maybe say thanks for your patience instead of saying sorry, I am late. And going back to the courtesy piece, you don't want your emails to come across as snarky. For example, perhaps my last email went into your junk folder, or as I mentioned earlier in this email thread. So you want to pay attention to what you're writing, because sometimes it can come across as a little bit of aggressive or rude on the other end. So maybe reread your emails before sending them. And you want to go easy on the business jargon. So here, double click on that is. So translation is, let me share more details on that point. Action this item means to do something, and so on. So we've got a bunch of examples here. You want to use other jargon that's normal speech that people will understand. And be careful with abbreviations. I share this a lot when people are writing resumes, because they may be incorporating acronyms that people don't know. So let's use the FFS model. So when I saw this, I did not necessarily know what it means, but it means fee for service. Follow up, I use that short form in my writing, but not everybody may know that. So you want to be careful when you're using maybe some of the things that you use to write, or internal acronyms for work, or things in your resume. Because, so for example, CDS could mean credit default swap. It can mean the Canadian Depository System. Very different things. So things to consider both in emails as well as in your job search correspondence. And before sending, always double check the recipients to make sure you're not inviting someone to a surprise, baby shower, or to a meeting they're not supposed to be at, or sending out something confidential like salary to the whole company, or emailing a job offer to the wrong person. You want to double check the recipients. Often when we're typing in people into our email, names automatically pop up, especially if they're people we send a lot of emails back and forth to. So you want to make sure you're actually sending it to the right person. It's often helpful if your email contains your name, maybe first name, last name in it. Sometimes people have some short forms or very encrypted kind of email addresses. So sometimes it may be difficult to realize who that is. And then you've definitely got to go back and recheck. Reread your message. Make sure, things are spelled correctly, grammar, are the proper people on it. And I mean, you have to think about, is an email necessary? Sometimes it's easier just to pick up the phone sometimes to clarify things or get things done. So you may want to consider that maybe the email is not the right way, and definitely don't send an email if you're angry, tired, or stressed. It may be taken the wrong way on the other end. So reply all. Do reply all when the response is relevant to the work. Maybe this is in your work groups and you're working through, proposal, activity, work you're doing, you're updating the team. Definitely that's for sure a great place to use it. But when you get those work emails that, when someone's got a promotion or someone's maybe leaving or getting accolades, don't just reply all. Just take the rest of the distribution off, forward it, put the person's email, and send them a private message. And you can always state within the email whether recipients should reply all. I find it's really good to maybe say, if you want to share, congratulations, to reply to that person, because I find that you often get a lot of reply all emails that you just don't need. So this is definitely something we're seeing more of now that we're all working from home, or many of us are, is that we're now starting to work on various chat platforms. So, Microsoft Teams is a popular one, Hangouts, Cisco WebEx, not seen here, Zoom. While email's still a communication workhorse in the office, this internal messaging is definitely, nipping at its heels. It's an easy way as teams to, go back and forth, but as well, sort of do these group chats and meetings in a virtual way, either, like this, or when you can actually see everybody. Messaging is popular because, it's how many of us communicate in our personal lives. It's fast, efficient, it can be casual and easy. You don't need a subject line, greetings, or sign off. You want to make sure you're sending it to the right person. But, the group chats also can deepen relationships and foster, that team spirit when you're not in the office. And I know I don't use it much at work. I have to use it a bit more now, but definitely that's a good way to share information. And when intention spans are limited, this is a great way to get something quickly off and it doesn't get buried in an email inbox, which sometimes happens. And texting is, also becoming a bit of a significant part in the hiring process. And we'll probably see a bit more of that. Next slide, Sonia. Thanks. Tech support. 27% of workers in Canada have texted a hiring manager, and 54% of IT managers have used text to communicate or coordinate interviews with applicants. I haven't seen this so much yet, but definitely, obviously it's happening. I mean, we don't text our clients to set up an interview. There's still a formal process for our candidates with that regard, but we may see more of this going forward. And instant messages are great for virtual collaboration. These platforms are harder for hackers to break into, at least at this point. And some companies, especially startups, have largely moved from email to chat apps. But messaging apps aren't perfect. Instead of 130 emails a day, there might just be 80, plus a lot of emails on groups, channels, rooms that you constantly have to be checking. So all that back and forth can disrupt time and productivity of a worker. Imagine trying to meet a deadline and you keep receiving instant message notifications. The emails you might be able to, maybe ignore for a bit, but the instant messages often seem to require your attention. So sometimes I might shut mine down for a bit because I've got to work on a submission, and that takes a bigger priority. And group chats aren't going anywhere. So you definitely need to practice good etiquette on this platform. We're going to see definitely more of it, even virtually seeing each other as we have meetings from home or in remote places. So some rules for work chats. Know the limits of instant messaging. So remembering that don't annoy, be aware of autocorrect, and don't write anything you wouldn't want the world to see. But some other stuff. Group chats are great for making quick decisions and collaborating in real time. But it's not so good at sharing a lot of information or maybe breaking bad news. And you want to know your audience. Way you message maybe your team members versus your manager and clients, may be very different. Whether you're using exclamation points or emojis, may come across as unprofessional. So you want to make sure you know the audience. I know for me, I would prefer just, business communication and all of those. I think it's the safest way to go, unless you've got a strong relationship with someone that maybe an emoji might be appropriate. And unless it's part of your corporate culture, don't send work chats outside of normal business hours. An employee can choose not to check their email at night, but instant messages may be different if they're coming to your phone. If they're not, then you might see them when you just log in the next day. So make sure you know what's appropriate. And if you're an entry-level employee, should you instant message the CEO? There's no right or wrong answer, but definitely you want to, check your business environment and the relationships that exist. So in terms of work group chats, talking to the group and not the individual. So don't direct your comments at one person and ignore everybody else within the group. You don't want to exclude anyone, but large group chats can get out of hand. So you might want to, in terms of like a instant message chat, maybe it's 3 to 6 people in a group. Maybe it's just a small group work team that happens on. So definitely consider that. We all know, don't interrupt. We all know when those 3 dots mean someone is typing. Other apps, you might not know that. So don't move the conversation in another direction when someone is trying to say something back. So if you see someone typing, wait to see what comes in. And unlike email, it's better to send 3 short messages than 1 long message in a group chat. That way you're not making everyone wait as you craft your message. And here we go. Just, make sure that you punctuate, your communication, and just going back to the formal business communication, using text talk and misspelt words, make sure that you're using the autocorrect to make sure what's coming across is what you want to convey to the person on the other end. So the phone and video calls have been around for a while. So we've got this one here going on, very, very formal, which I think is not probably the case on most right now. But now we're seeing more companies that are hiring remote workers, and people are starting working remotely themselves. So this is definitely more and more common. So etiquette is really important. Um, you know, you want to find a quiet space in terms of where you're going to call in. A neutral background, similar to if you're going to do a phone or video interview. So if you can find a place, maybe that's the place you've elected to work at home. And sometimes you'll put your camera on, sometimes you won't. But definitely you may want to be prepared in case you log into a meeting where you're not expecting to be on camera, and then you might actually be asked to start your video. So some tips to go with these kind of meetings. So mute when you're not speaking. It seems obvious, but we know even on conference calls from before, you always have that background noise. So you may think you're quiet, but the phone and microphone is picking up every noise, typing, if you're breathing, if you're eating while the meeting's going on, if your cat or dog is in the background. So maybe when you log on to actually automatically put yourself on mute so you don't forget. And you want to reduce background noise when you're not on mute. So using a headset or earbuds with a microphone is really helpful. Never use a speakerphone unless you're on a call with several people in the same room as you, but definitely to try to, reduce the background noise. And don't talk while on the go. Maybe not such an issue right now with many of us being in isolation, but when you're walking or driving, you might be distracted. You might actually put yourself in danger, or it might be illegal in terms of if you're a driver. So even if you have a hands-free setup, it's frustrating for other participants, when the connection goes bad or drops entirely, or if you're on the train and then other people are hearing the conversation that's maybe confidential. And you definitely want to be paying attention to the conversation and meeting that's happening. So establishing ground rules regarding crosstalk. We all get on these meetings with 2 or more people and everybody starts talking at the same time. Then they both stop, it's the silence, and then they both start talking again. So it's the awkwardness. So during, in-person meetings, body language helps us determine who's going to speak first. But in a phone and video meeting, this isn't always so easy, even if you have your camera on. So one of the solutions is the meeting organizer can determine who has the floor. Maybe put up a hand saying you'd like to inquire or speak, and what to do when there's no clear leader and everybody's on the same level. I mean, it's just maybe sort of, stepping back so the other person can go. So the last category of digital etiquette whirlwind tour is the social media piece. And I know for many of us, if you're a job seeker, you're definitely on LinkedIn, and you may be on other platforms, out of personal interest. So definitely, similar to the instant message and the video chats, you want to be cognizant of what you're putting online and saying. So here are a few things that are, things in the social media space, and not many of them. Only one is still around, which is actually MySpace. And the others have gone goodbye over the years. So the most popular messaging app in China is, and I've only learned this last year, which is called WeChat. So this is a new one to even me. And so in this case, they seem to own everything, but they don't own Fitbit, which many of us might have. And so this seems to be all the rage, especially in isolation. It's a video app, TikTok. It seems very popular among kids and teens. So this is a new and up and coming, I guess, application. And Vimeo is used for video hosting. And the person that has the most Twitter followers is actually B, Barack Obama. And so, yeah, so if someone's sending you to send a DM, it's a direct message. This is very, very common to take a conversation from public to private. So should you and your friends follow colleagues on social media? LinkedIn is definitely many colleagues, even, senior leaders are connected to their staff. But what about on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, maybe the TikTok, that's the new thing. It shows the younger the worker, the more likely they seem to think it's appropriate to be connected with colleagues on social media. And for people that are new, there's, that fine line between personal and professional can sometimes be a bit blurry. So if you're going to connect with colleagues on social media, you still want to consider the 3 pillars of digital etiquette as well here. And there's the extra layer of complexity because social media is so public and open. So even if your profile is private or you've tweaked your settings to exclude work friends, you can still have some of those connections. So here you're going to see, different things from Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat. So in social media, you want to pay attention to the corporate culture regarding it. In some offices, coworkers don't friend or follow each other on social media with the exception of LinkedIn. It's only after someone maybe departs the company that maybe they reach out on Facebook or Instagram to stay in touch. At other organizations, practically everyone is connected on the major platforms. Colleagues know when each other's birthdays are, about their families, milestones that are happening. They see their vacation pictures. If it's the organization culture to friend and follow, you definitely want to do the same if you're comfortable. But if no one's connected, don't be the person, who sends out all the friend invites. So you just want to get to know the culture you're joining. And if someone who draws the line between personal and professional, and someone sends you a friend request, tell them in person about your philosophy and, very diplomatically explain why you're not going to accept their friend request. And there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you're most comfortable with. So don't post anything negative about the company or your boss or complaining about what an awful place it is you're working on. If you need to rant, definitely keep it offline. Even if you delete something, these things can be found later on. And you don't want to post any proprietary, confidential, or embargoed information. Most of us wouldn't, leak trade secrets or company data. So, you don't want to be doing that in person. And you definitely don't want to be doing that online. And you want to, I think we missed a slide. So you definitely, the slide before this, you want to keep your posts clean and culturally sensitive. We see what's going on in the world today. You definitely want to, be very sensitive about what you're putting out. And, it shouldn't be anything, that's racist, sexist, vulgar, rude, violent, illegal. So please keep this in mind. Even within a private group, it's definitely not unheard of for maybe a coworker to send something that's questionable. But yeah, definitely, speak up to that. So avoid posting on social media during work hours. Timestamps don't lie. Some bosses are okay with their employees using social media in small doses during work hours. Others simply are not. So you want to know the culture and the social media usages, of your organization that you work with. So lastly, if you use email, instant messages, social media, conference calls, video meetings, you're likely committing or have committed a digital faux pas in your life. I'm sure we all have. I'm sure we will all continue to do so as we learn. The rules have changed, and I think we're all just sort of adapting to this new normal, whether it's COVID or just, the way of work will likely never be the same beyond this. So this etiquette helps us, to helpfully navigate some of the business and social situations we may find each other in. And I thank you for joining me today.
Oh, sorry, I thought I wasn't unmuted myself. Okay, so thank you so much. I hope everyone got some questions answered through the presentation, but we can start taking up your questions now as well. You can start to, please put them into the Q&A tab. It's probably at the bottom of your screen. So, all right, so okay, we've got 2 questions here. Let's say you want a connection to refer you for a job on LinkedIn, someone who you don't know. How can you ask them?
I think it's really, really challenging. I know sometimes I get asked, you know, to make recommendations, you know, to somewhere where I volunteer, which I actually can't do, from people I've never met or had any interactions with. And I think that's, you know, I think you want to develop a relationship before you're asking someone to, you know, make an introduction. They might not be comfortable making an introduction to someone they don't know. If you're going to email that person directly, I would send, you know, an email introduction with the invite about why you want to connect. But yeah, I don't know that many people would be comfortable making a recommendation if they have no relationship with someone.
I agree. Thank you. And is it normal for a recruiter to ask the last few digits of your SIN number?
Sometimes for some vendor management programs, that is required.
Okay, but like, let's say someone calls them up and they can say that, you know, we've inviting you for an interview. Would you give them your SIN number at that stage?
No, I don't know that you would do that.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're working with a recruiter, you know, if they require it for a vendor submission, they will let you know that. But I don't think a company would be asking for that until you get to the offer stage if you're dealing with them directly.
Exactly. Thank you. How do you follow up on your connections or like, sorry, not many people are open to phone calls or video calls right away. Okay, so yeah, like if like how do you talk to people, because you can't just pick up your phone and give someone a call because it might be not convenient for them. What's the best way to get in touch with them?
You know, it's not, you know, if someone's not available, they might not pick up the phone, and you can leave them a
Right.
message. I would always leave a message so they know, because of your private number, if it doesn't capture your number, you know, if you're calling 10 times and all of a sudden your number shows up, that might seem a little bit aggressive. So if you get someone's voicemail and you're looking to connect with them, I'd leave them a clear, concise, always include your name and your phone number in it. Maybe repeat your phone number twice. Sometimes I get messages and they're like, call me back, but there's no name, no phone number. So sometimes I'm not even able to.
Thank you. And what would be the right attire for an online video interview?
Same as an in-person interview. Definitely if you're doing a virtual video interview, I would dress up head to toe in, you know, business attire. You know, make sure that your background where you're sitting is, you know, not too distracting. It's neat. You know, you've got a quiet space. So if you've got family members at home, perhaps you find a room that you can be in by yourself. No one's going to be walking by. So there's not that distraction. Yeah, and you know, similar to an in-person interview, and dress head to toe, because you never know when you might be asked to stand up, or perhaps, you know, you have to stand up because all of a sudden your tablet or your computer's dying and you need to go plug it in.
Right.
Or if you're going to wear a suit head to toe, or a skirt and dress, or, you know, and it's always good. I find maybe like a pop of color might help, you know, depending on the environment you're in. Sometimes I'll put on a scarf if I'm going to do a video chat to get, you know, a bit of color.
Thank you. Thank you. And are there other websites like LinkedIn?
I mean, LinkedIn is really the standard for, you know, professional business relationships. Many people that aren't on other social media are on LinkedIn to develop and keep in touch with you know, their contacts, make new contacts, join groups, learn from people that are posting. So I think, you know, it's kind of the gold standard for the professional network. The others are, you know, just if, you know, you choose to join them. And they're likely the other ones you're probably using a bit more, you know, on a personal basis.
Thank you. And given the current situation, how should people network and, you know, build connections?
I think, you know, sending those personal invites. There's a ton of webinars that are happening all the time and different topics. It doesn't need to be on, you know, maybe what your professional experience is. You know, get on those webinars, put your video camera on if you're comfortable, and get to know people and maybe connect with people afterwards. You know, ask questions, engage in dialogue. You and comments even on LinkedIn. If you see posts, you see an article you like, share it, comment on it, start to build relationships. You sort of, what you give, you might get back. It's kind of like an equal thing back and forth.
Thank you. And let's say someone's built a good rep with someone, just through LinkedIn, talking to them online. Let's say a job opens up at their company. Like, should they be direct about referring them to the position?
Well, I think, if they have a relation with someone, maybe they can inquire. That person may or may not be comfortable, making that introduction, especially if they don't know someone potentially in person. Maybe they're new themselves. So I think you kind of want to play it by ear. But yeah, if you have a bit of a relationship that you've developed, maybe you can inquire, I'm really interested in this organization. I saw this posting. Do you know how I go about, applying, or to who?
Thank you. And are employers hiring online, like digitally right now? Like, are they still onboarding with the current situation going on?
Yes, yeah, they are. Yeah, and some of my recent placements are virtual interviews, virtual onboarding.
Nice, thank you.
Yeah, and for the time being, we'll be working from home until I guess things are safe to return to an office. So yeah, most people will be expected to return to an office at some point, but what that office will look like is hard to say for any of us, I think.
Nice, thank you. And do you think it's useful to get LinkedIn Premium if you're job searching?
To be honest, I don't use it myself, so I don't know whether people get a lot of benefit or not. It's probably best to maybe put that to your network, to other job seekers, and whether they found it useful.
Let's say you sent an email to your manager and the response is thank you, just a thank you. Should you also respond to say you're very welcome or something like that, or should you just end it at their thank you?
I think it's okay if they've said thank you, but the information, I think that's probably okay. Because it kind of closes it off.
All right. And when an email is addressed to two people, like what's the best way to address it? Like Mr. Blank and Blank, or would you say like they're like hi everyone? Like what's the best way to address at least two people in an email?
I mean, I think if it's formal, dear, Mr. X, dear and Mr. Y or Mrs. Y. I wouldn't just put like a slash unless, you're applying to a job. Maybe you're putting dear sir / madam. But yeah, or if, you have a relationship, maybe it's, dear Michelle and Sonia. So.
Okay. Can you use phone message or phone calls to follow up with someone who's interviewed? So can you text someone who has interviewed you to follow up?
I don't know. I mean, part of me thinks that might be better via email or on the phone, especially if you don't know how that person perceives texts from a job applicant. And often, text, potentially may mean you need their mobile number as opposed to a work number, because you might not be able to text their work. So part of me feels like that may be a more formal telephone call follow-up or email.
Thank you. And when recruiters say like a position has been put on hold, what is the meaning of that? Will it open up, or like should they keep on waiting for that very position? Like what's the best?
It could mean anything. When they put it on hold, they might be reviewing applications. Maybe there's a change in the business, it might be on hold for a period of time because maybe they've got different priorities. I don't know that, there's one standard to a role being on hold.
Thank you. And how often should someone follow up with their recruiter?
I think you want to talk to your recruiter and the different recruiters you work with. Everyone has a style they prefer, and how often you should check in, what methods you should use. Some people want LinkedIn messages, some people want phone and email. My own preference is phone and email directly, as opposed to LinkedIn Messenger, where I might get messages, from non-candidates. And, if I've got a lot of deadlines, that might be a delayed place that I'm going. And if I'm off on, say I'm off for a couple of days, you'd never know because there's no out of office there. So you might miss something in the meantime.
Thank you. It happens a lot that, people don't respond back to like email or messages on LinkedIn. Is it okay to call them?
Definitely. I mean, and leave a message and be professional about it. I mean, as you saw, like 130 emails, there are some days I get way, way more than that. That takes time to go through. And if you're managing some deadlines or things that have some urgency, it might take people a little bit of time. But, if you're going to call, leave a message with all of the details. And know if someone hasn't called you back right away, maybe there's, some other things that are on their plate that they're not able to return that call immediately. So a little bit of patience goes a long way.
Thank you. And all right, I think we've answered a few of these questions here. How do you break the ice when there's an awkward pause in a conversation?
I mean, sometimes, it's okay to take a pause, especially in an interview. Maybe you need to think about something. Yeah, I mean, sometimes that's going to be okay. I don't know necessarily that I have a tip for how to break the ice, but I think it depends on what kind of conversation you've had. Maybe you can put it into, a different direction or reroute it back to something you were speaking about.
Thank you. How would you ask an employer if they've made a decision to hire yet?
I would simply just follow up, have you, where are you in the search process? Have you decided on a candidate? What's the timeline? And even something that may be urgent immediately can sometimes all of a sudden the timeline can change, or something in the role can change, or sometimes the role might just cancel or close.
Thank you. And I think we've answered most of these questions here. One second. Do you recommend having a resume looked at by a professional before applying for jobs?
If you know someone in your network that might be able to provide you some feedback, maybe that they work in a similar type of job, or the area you want to get into. If you're working with a recruiter, you want to talk to them because different types of submissions might require different, types of resumes and what's in it. Definitely with your resume, a good place, to start. Definitely, I always want to have a copy of a reverse chronological one. I want to see a consistent font throughout it, that it's got, it's aesthetically pleasing, that dates and years, like months and years are in it, that they're written in a consistent format. So either all the months are spelt in full or they're not. You want to sort of, and some of that you might be able to just look at it by printing it and looking for things that might be missing. Are you using bullet points? Does it look like something you'd want to read if you got it? Is it easy to read? Is it clear, concise? You don't want to write in I or first person when writing your resume. Your name is at the top, so you want to write clear, concise statements throughout it. So some of it you might be able to pinpoint, but if you're working with a recruiter and they're going to present you on a job, hopefully most of them would provide you some feedback if you do need to change something.
And when you're emailing someone, do you have to say hi and their name every time, or could you just type in the body of the message?
I think sometimes it's nice to have pleasantries. I think it depends maybe on the conversation. Sometimes I'll get an email and it'll be like, can you find me a job? And there's no hello, dear Michelle, that sort of thing. So I feel like sometimes pleasantries go a long way, and that whole courtesy and stuff like that. And make sure if you're spelling someone's name that you're spelling it correctly. And if using their first name, sometimes, I'll get it to my last name, but no miss, and just sort of using that as my first name. So just make sure that you're paying attention to, especially if someone's emailed you too, of who you're emailing back.
Thank you. When negotiating salaries, do you go through the recruiter, or are you speaking to the hiring manager directly?
With the temporary side, I would have already quoted you a pay rate if I was presenting you on the job. So I know that up front. I'm already having those discussions. Generally, if you're working with a perm recruiter, you're probably working with them on that salary information. And I suspect if you're interviewing with a company directly, probably some of that's happening with their HR department.
Thank you. And when someone registers themselves with Robert Half, do they does the system automatically start matching them with job openings, or do they have to work with a recruiter?
I mean, you would be in the database, so people will be able to find you. Some people apply. For me, I've got people, once I've spoken to them, I have them coded for different types of opportunities. So as I get them, then I know who to reach out to. But yeah, if you're applying to jobs, someone will be able to search. So if I was working on a role and I could go into our system and look under different criteria, if I needed a certain skill set that maybe I didn't know someone, and be able to find people within it. But you want to make sure your resumes are keyword rich, in terms of content, in terms of software, whether you're applying to an agency, whether you're applying to a company, to make sure your experience is getting captured.
Thank you. I'm just reading over some questions. I think we've answered a lot of these questions. How long should you wait to follow up after an interview?
I think at the end of the interview, you might want to ask them a bit about their process and, how long they're going to take, because you don't know if, if they're interviewing multiple candidates after you, if they're not anticipating to have a decision, for another week or a week and a half. So you might want to inquire about what the next steps are, so can plan your follow-up based on that. Because if they're not going to know for 2 weeks, you don't want to be calling 2 days later, because maybe people that are interviewing candidates are on vacation, and there's lots of different things.
Thank you. And I think we've answered most of the questions here. Oh, resumes. How long should a resume be?
I mean, I think it depends. Sometimes people try to put it in one page, but they end up leaving too much information out about, what they've done, their accomplishments, their software. So sometimes, a 2-page resume is going to be, better than a 1-page. I know a lot of people try to get it in 1 page, but there's no spacing. It's all just big, 1 page of words almost. But I find sometimes in 1 pages, especially if someone's worked for a bit, sometimes they leave out a lot of content that might screen them in versus screen them out, in these online systems.
Thank you. So there's one question here. How do you deal with a situation when you've been contacted for a scheduled interview, but I guess it was canceled and then it was never brought up again?
Sometimes that happens. I've had it happen to, candidates of mine, where all of a sudden the client maybe has decided not to hire, or maybe they've decided to make an offer to someone. So, I would just deal with it as professionally, as possible, because you don't know, even if that interview canceled, you don't know what, might open up there, or maybe this role will open up. So I think all of your dealings, with an organization online should be, professional in nature. Yeah, it's definitely disappointing when an interview you really want to go to cancels. But unfortunately in life that sometimes happens. And I think, it's just the way you deal with it.
Does international experience count towards Canadian experience?
Definitely. I mean, at the end of the day, when I'm working on roles, I'm looking for the most qualified candidate for the requirements I've been given by my client.
And where do people put their soft skills on their resume?
You might talk to it a bit in the summary part. I mean, sometimes you might be talking to your soft skills in some of the points, especially if you're doing a lot, with building relationships, dealing with stakeholders. So you might find that there, as well as in your cover letter, you can definitely allude to some of your soft skills.
And sometimes when you're applying for jobs, there might not be like a contact name or the hiring manager's name. what should you do in that case when you're addressing them in an email?
I would put dear sir / madam.
Right. And
Yeah.
how do recruiters view career gaps?
I mean, I think, we're going to have a discussion because a lot of times, a client might want to know what someone's doing during that time. So obviously we're going to have those discussions with a candidate to find out. Sometimes people, have taken time off, to go to school. Right now, some people might be taking time off, because they're on a temporary layoff, or maybe they're caring for an ill family member. So yeah, but every company, and I think, would be different on how they might view it.
Can you write like catchy subject lines to attract people's attention towards your email?
I don't know, like sometimes that might be considered kind of gimmicky. I mean, depending what kind of industry, maybe in the creative thing, it might go over far better than maybe in a more corporate environment.
If someone posts a job on LinkedIn, can you contact them personally and ask them to review your profile?
I wouldn't ask them to review your profile. I would follow the instructions. If they've asked you to submit a resume, I would really, really read the post. Sometimes, people will post jobs on LinkedIn and I see these, review my resume, interested. But if the actual posting says, please apply here, follow those instructions.
And what are some keywords that are important for accounting or financing jobs?
Well, I think you want to look at the job posting, and if you have that information is including, what's pertinent to your resume, definitely technical skills for sure, any accounting softwares, if you have a designation. I think, for any job seeker wants to look at the job they're applying for, and, if they have the skills and competencies, they want to make sure that they capture some of that in their resume.
Does local education outweigh international education?
I think education's education. Just make sure when you're putting your education on your resume, you've actually put, the actual name of the degree and the institution on your resume. One for background check processes when you get there, when you get a job, but as well, you don't want to mislead someone with regards to what education you do have.
Thank you. And does having a lot of temporary short-term jobs on your resume make you look bad?
I mean, a lot of people do temp work. Some people prefer to do temporary contract type of work. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're working and you're gaining experience, you want to be including that. And sometimes, just what's going on in the market, determines whether people, are able to find full-time employment easier.
Thank you. And let's say if you're applying for a position and you are overqualified, like can you use a lower designation on your resume?
I would not, because I find it very misleading. If you're changing your titles, and I've seen it happen to candidates where they were actually maybe in the running for a job where then all of a sudden they weren't, because that, manager has gone to their LinkedIn profile and found out they, were a VP versus, the financial analyst they've disclosed. And, it'll come out in a background check when, references when things don't match, don't match what's on the HR file. So I would talk to, if you've got a different title, and even overseas, different titles can mean different things, but talk to your skills and competencies and accomplishments within the points.
Thank you. And how do you address your current job status on your resume? Let's say like if you're unemployed at the moment.
I mean, I don't know that you would put it potentially on your resume. You would have the end date. Maybe if you've gone back to school, maybe that's something you're putting ahead of it. Some people will put the education first if it's more current versus the job experience. That might be something more suitable to your cover letter or email correspondence, or the correspondence you're having, with that individual.
All right, thank you. So Michelle, do you have anything else to add?
I know it's been a tough time. It's week 13 for me remotely for sure. There's been a lot of new normals. I'm learning a lot about Zoom and Microsoft Teams, and there's still a lot to learn. So, but just check in with one another, and join these groups, and keep active on the job search. A lot of people say nothing's happening, but one day things are gonna maybe just turn around all of a sudden, and you don't want to miss out on that wave. So, embrace the technology, embrace the emails, you know, think about the correspondence you're sending, think about what you're writing online, on the chat messages, in the Q&A that you're writing. You know, is that what you want everybody to be able to see? Or if you're commenting on posts on LinkedIn or other social media, these are really, really important things to consider. We want to embrace it. We're going to be using it going forward, and just stay positive, and good luck with the job search, and feel free to find me on LinkedIn.
Thank you so much. So we do have more webinars coming up. This was the first one for June. Check out our website, accessemployment.ca/online event series. The next one coming up is June 10th, job hunting and EI supports in the time of COVID-19. And just so you know that all of our locations are open, but we're doing everything online. So if you'd like to meet with an employment consultant, if you have any questions, please call your closest ACCESS location. And again, we've got all our webinars happening online. And if you are overseas and you have your PRs and you're making a move to Canada, we can start helping you with your job search, start getting you ready before you come to Canada, as long as you belong to any one of these sectors. And you can follow us on our social media. We are very active on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Thank you all for joining today. And Michelle, thank you so much for today's webinar. Bye, everyone.
Bye.